career, you're going to not establish that you're capable of at data science. What you are going to establish is that you are, you have high potential. You're thinking intelligently about what is data science, right? You're asking good questions, you're curious. So that's one thing, is your technical competence. And your stage in your career, you're demonstrating potential when we say technical competence. So you understand a lot of core concepts, everything that you're learning in your technical side, as well as you understand like the important questions to ask. And then on the other side of this, you are trying to establish a relationship with the interviewer. You want them to have the sense, in Google, they call this the airport test. You want them to have the sense that if they get stuck in the airport with you, right? You're at the airport, pandemic breaks out, you're at the airport, flights are canceled, and you're going to be stuck in the airport for 4 to 5 hours with this coworker, right? Before you can get the next flight to leave. Are you going to have a good time? That's the airport test, right? Your interviewer is asking themselves in the back of their head, you know, when I'm with Jeanette, when I'm with John, stuck in this airport for 4 to 5 hours, am I going to feel good? And if I'm not going to feel good, I don't know if I want to hire this person, because basically I'm going to see them all the time at work, right? So you're establishing 2 things during your interview. One, your technical competence, which at your level is really about potential. And 2, you're establishing that you're a person they want to spend time with, that they're going to enjoy getting to know over the years that you're going to work together, right? Can I get a thumbs up if those things resonate? All right, cool. So when you do your portfolio kind of stuff, I want to encourage you to pick at least one thing that's a little quirky, that shows that you are good at your data science skills, that you have some potential, and 2, show something about you personally, right? So what do I communicate when I show my tribe sheet? What did I communicate that I'm doing personally? I would love to hear from at least 1 or 2 people. Just come off mute and share. What do you think I shared about me personally? Maybe,
Your friends.
yeah, go ahead, Ken, go ahead.
Your friends.
And what about my friends?
Like you give us a bit of details about them, like.
Great, yes, great. So I told you about 2 of my friends. Great, people in the chat are saying that I value my networks and keeping connected. Stephanie's saying that I have the ability to maintain personal relationships. When we use saying about the networking, keeping connected. Yeah, absolutely. All of these things, right? Hopefully I'm also communicating that well, as Stephanie said, right, I know how to take care of relationships, right? So this is a personal aspect. And then to Ken's point, you know, I was able to sort of share a little bit about some of my relationships. And by the way, I chose those 2 examples and I focus on what I told you about them because I know a little bit about your background, right? So when you're talking to your interviewer, if your interviewer seems to be in the older generation, maybe, you know, you might talk about metal. If you're talking about a music project, you might talk about metal, right? If your interviewer seems to be in your generation, you might try to do a read and see, do they like hip hop? And then you might name some hip hop, right? So you want to figure out how to make that relationship, right? Make that connection. Yeah, and Kevin's point, sort of this integration, Kevin wrote that I apply what I teach in my personal life. And Jeanette, so the 2 things I was saying is that 1 is your technical capability, which is your potential. And the second is you want to establish the sense that they will enjoy being friends with you. They will enjoy having a social connection with you. Because with your coworkers, you're going to spend a lot of time with them. So they're going to want that social connection. All right. So that is our welcome into the space. I think I welcomed some of you. I wanted to say welcome again to Rafaya, Maggie, Jeanette, Victoria, Miwakali, and Nabil. Welcome here. Um, so we had a request from last time. David, actually, I don't know if I said welcome to you. Welcome. David had requested that we do meditation. I think a few others, Stephanie had requested this as well. So we're going to take a few minutes to do a quick meditation. I'm going to invite everyone to try to find a comfortable seating position. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, just get a little comfortable. Don't worry about doing anything complicated, just get comfortable. You want to sit upright. I invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can just look down, sort of a 45-degree angle. And I invite you to draw your attention to your belly. And just try to see if you can notice how your belly moves as you breathe. As you're breathing in, your belly might expand slightly. And as you breathe out, it might contract slightly, falling. And on your in-breath, just try repeating, breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. So on the in-breath, breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. And on the out-breath, breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. And then continue to just repeat in as you breathe in, and out as you breathe out. If you notice your mind wandering, you're thinking about different things, no problem. Just acknowledge that. Okay, a thought came up. Maybe a feeling is coming up. And just say, okay, there's a thought, there's a feeling. And then just gently invite your attention back to your belly. In, out. Now just gently bring your attention back into the room and back into our session. You can open your eyes slowly. Ida is asking in the chat, why do we use the bells? The bells are a part of a lot of these traditions, these meditation traditions. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it, but ultimately, the reason I enjoy doing it is when I'm most at peace and I'm most at ease, I can really connect to that vibration, that sound that comes from the bell. And I can almost hear it in all of my body. And it's a wonderful feeling to be able to really hear that fully in my body. When I'm not at ease and I'm not at peace and I have some tension, I can't hear it as well. And it's a wonderful reminder that this too is life, and not every day I'm fully at peace and at ease, and that's okay. So for me, I really appreciate the bells for that reason. Rafia sharing that was nice and sharing her thanks. Thank you, Rafia. And I see you're okay with the period. So I take that to mean that you don't sound convinced or you're not convinced. I'm okay too with that. So you'll take that. Great. I'll take that. Great. So welcome everyone back in our space here. So I want to ask everyone to take a moment and answer two questions that I've shared in the Slack. Sorry, three questions that I had shared in the Slack. And I'm going to put them in the chat right now. We only have about 40 minutes left. So we'll try to go quickly with the time we have left. Today is going to be a shorter session. I'm really glad to see so many of you already in the Google Doc. So let me know what topics you want to focus on. I would really like to share with you my stars and wins sheet. This is a trick I learned from MBA students, Masters in Business Administration. This is something they do to prepare for interviews, and I think it's actually helpful for a number of different ways. So I want to share that with you. That's sort of in the interview section. That's something I would like to share. But I want to hear from at least a few of you. What is it that you're interested in talking about today? And welcome to Video Mivakali. Appreciate you joining. I've shared a couple of times for those of you who are new. I'm going to just reiterate it. It's really valuable that we get comfortable on video in these kinds of environments. Everything we can do to feel more comfortable talking to each other and really showing our faces makes us more comfortable during interviews. I'm very confident at least one of you will have at least most of you will have at least a few interviews that are online given the pandemic. So if you're not comfortable here on video with people that you're working and collaborating with for weeks, you're going to feel uncomfortable during the interviews. So take the time to try to practice with each other and here. Great. I see Kevin voting for number 5, the organized job hunting process.
Number 1.
David saying number 1. Great.
Number 5.
Great. Got a few number 5s. And that was Gerald, right? Who said number 5? And actually, everyone else, if you can put it in the chat, it'll help me keep track better. We got some upworks. All right. So with that, I've got a sense that we'll skip number 2. I've already talked a little bit about portfolios. I'm just going to say a real quick thing on the portfolios, and then we'll move on to everything else. When you're thinking about how to communicate who you are and share in advance, things that are visually appealing will get you really far away. So take a look at the link I just put in the chat. It's also in the Google document. There's a lot of ways that people have captured their personal lives in very visually appealing ways and very data-centric ways. This is a really great way to communicate with an interviewer, right? This is what my tribe sheet tries to do. So I think I had mentioned to Ida, because Ida has a really strong love of music and is on, I think it was Live FM. There's a lot of really interesting ways that you can create data visualizations with your data. Last FM, thanks Ida. You can create some really great data visualizations. So really think about what can you do for your own life that will really communicate immediately to an interviewer that, oh, this person's interesting. They're doing something interesting. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to switch into the stars matrix, and then we can talk about, I want to leave Upwork and freelancing for next week. Let me make that a commit right now. The one thing I will say on Upwork and freelancing is that in general, you will become a master at interviews and applications when you're a consultant, when you're a contractor. You should just understand that everything that we're talking about with job hunting, you will have to be very good at. Part of the reason why I've taught so many of my friends and my colleagues how to do job hunting is because I've worked at a consulting firm. So every 2 months, I had to pitch myself. You know, I had to give my resume to people inside the company. This was IBM, by the way. That was my consulting firm. So I had to actually contact people. I had to network and say, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I work on. I see that you're running this project with this client, Walmart, Pepsi, Abbott Labs, Starwood Hotels. I see you're running this project. I'm really interested in this project. Can I work with you? MTV, all kinds of different companies. And I would have to contact the person who was inside IBM, and I would get them excited about me. That was my internal networking. And then when they were saying, okay, well, you could be on this project, we like you, I would then be interviewed with the client. So then I'd have to go to the client and say, here's my resume, and I'd have to have an interview with them. So I did dozens of interviews in a year, and I got good at them, right? So if you want to be an Upwork and you want to be a contractor, just know that a big part of your work is actually selling yourself constantly. That's just a big part of the job, right? We can talk more about the actual experience though of Upwork and freelancing online or later. Okay, can I get a thumbs up? Is that okay? Does that work for people? We're gonna save the freelancing, okay? I specifically want a thumbs up from Nabil. I saw Nahom's thumbs up already. Nabil, if you don't know how to use that thumbs up yet, there's a little reactions button at the bottom of your screen that you can put a thumbs up, or you can just type in the chat if that works for you or does not work for you. And okay, so Mikwali, am I saying your name correctly? Mikwali? How do I say your name?
It's Mikali.
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 Mukali. So I'm just not going to be able to say it as well as you, I think, but I can try. So if you can send me any pronunciation guides on how to say it, I'd appreciate that. Mukali. And then Stephanie, both of you said interviews were interesting for you. So let me share with you first. So I'm going to be talking to both of you. I want you to sort of talk back to me. Let's make it a conversation. First, what is it on your mind when you're thinking about interviews? What are you concerned about? What do you want to address?
For me, it's more of the eye contact and the command of like English language. So yeah.
Okay. So with one thing you'll notice me doing in these conversations that I do a lot is reflective listening. I will continuously repeat back what I heard the other person say. It's a fascinating practice for two reasons. One, when you repeat back what someone else says, they know that you heard them correctly, especially if you check. So Macaulay, I heard you say that you wanted to talk about eye contact and you struggle with your command of English, and those two things are important to you, right? So now you're nodding, right? Do you feel like I understood what you had to say? And that whatever I say next is going to address what you had to say?
Yes.
Have you ever had an experience in a conversation where you're talking to the person and whatever you asked them or you said to them, their next statement felt like it had nothing to do with what you were trying to say?
Yes.
All right, give me a thumbs up if anyone else has had that experience. See a few thumbs up. The rest of you know everyone always understands what you're saying. You're very well understood. When you're able to do that reflective listening, especially as a habit, you build that connection right away, right? The second thing it does, Macaulay, so what that means though is if your English is poor, right? Or if your English is just different, right? Because it's not necessarily that we have different levels of English competence, but I'm speaking American English. You're speaking English that's been localized for whatever area you are in, right? So the pronunciation is different. So if there's a language barrier of any kind, whether it be accent or actually the language, when you do reflective listening, you can actually make sure that you have understood what's being said without looking down, right? So when I give you a quick short example, when I travel to India, I try to speak the language there with my grandmother, my dadima, and that's what we call father's mother. And my dadima doesn't really speak English at all. She knows like 10 words, like hi, how are you, good, you know? And then everything else is in Hindi or Gujarati or Dani Zaban, one of these three different languages that we share. And I don't speak any of those three languages well. So it is very complicated when I'm talking to her. And before I learned to do reflective listening, she would always just laugh at me. She would be like, this kid, and she would say this phrase that I understand, which is basically hasiche, haspanuche, pan nothing sabji, right? Which is basically like he laughs all the time, but he doesn't get any of it. And it's like, that's an insult, right? Like that's basically a backhanded insult. And I would understand what she was saying, and I couldn't respond because I didn't have enough of the language, right? But when I started doing reflective listening, even though my language was so poor, she knew I understood what she was saying, right? And then she was willing to hear what I said, even though I was speaking broken Hindi, right? So it didn't matter that I couldn't speak the language well. The reflective listening helped, right? So that's the first thing I'm gonna recommend to you. When you're in these interviews, confirm that you understood the question, right? And don't try to make sure you don't say it back exactly the same way they say it, because then you sound like a parrot, right? You don't want to parrot them. You want to try to say it back in your own words and add a little bit of your own thinking to it, right? So for example, on Slack, I asked an interview question, one that I have gotten before when I've been applying for jobs. I had asked, given that January, February, March have 4.5 weeks, how would you show the weekly costs for each? The answers I got back were about data visualization. That is not what I was asking for, all right? So now if I was interviewing those people, they might have thought they had answered the question correctly, right? But as the interviewer, I'm thinking they didn't get it, right? So they could have actually done a quick reflective listening. I'm understanding that you want us to tell you how we would visualize the data. Did I get that correct? And my response would have been no. What I'm actually asking you is how do you categorize the data, not how do you visualize it? And how do you separate weeks into months? And once you've categorized it, we can talk about visualizing it. Right now, I want to know how you categorize it. right? So you can get that clarification during the interview. I did that on my first consulting interview with IBM when I got hired. And like at the end of the interview, the person said to me, "You're really smart. And I'm really excited. And I'm going to be making sure that I tell my other interviewers." There were 3 people I had to interview with. So I had 3, there was a panel of interviews and you did one by one. And they're like, "I'm going to make sure I'm telling the other interviews we need to hire you." I did not expect to get that kind of response from anybody ever, right? That was my first interview. But all I was really doing was checking. Every time they'd ask me a question, I would check. I understand your question correctly? And half the time when I answered the question back, about half the time I shared some knowledge in my question and my answer back as well, right? Are you asking for a categorization or asking for a data visualization, right? That shows your awareness and understanding of the topic, right? Okay, so that'll help you a lot on the language barrier. Apart from that, you just practice your English, you know? Have conversations with people as much as you can. How many of you in the chat, I want to see a yes or a no, if you reached out to somebody in 10 Academy for a 15-minute conversation? Nice. Victoria, Ida, great. Ken, thank you for sharing. Maki, Faya, John, great, wonderful. I didn't ask for the reaction. I just asked if you asked somebody. And Stephanie, if you ask me, I'll probably snob you too, just so you know. Great, great. For those of you who weren't here last week, one of the homework assignments was to practice networking, practice building relationships. A great way to do that is to reach out to people in 10 Academy for a 15-minute conversation. Many of you live in different countries. Being able to talk to each other across your regional differences with English, great way to practice, right? You're going to face that kind of things in the companies you work in the interviews you have. So this is a great way to practice with each other. Also, you're doing the same thing right now. Like, connect with each other, learn from each other. If you build good relationships, these are the people who will get you a job if you fail your first interviews, right? The people who succeed in their first interviews, these are your friends. If you get a job, these are people that you might want to have come work at your company when the second position opens. These are people you already know. It'd be nice to have somebody who has a similar situation, a similar background in 10 Academy. No one else at your job will have that, right? So build the relationships here. Okay. So that was a 15-minute exercise. Great. I'm glad to see many of you did it. Those of you who did, ask somebody else. This coming week, do it again. Those of you who did not, please learn to do this. You need to learn to do this. All of you getting excited about who did what right or wrong in the chat, let it go. Just let it go. Okay, so I'm going to come back now to interviews. One of the things I also want to say about interviews is prepare for your interview. Macaulay, if this is a person you feel humanly connected to before you have the interview, it'll feel less threatening. You'll feel less scared. You'll be able to look at them in the eyes. So look them up on LinkedIn. Do you know what their photo looks like? If you talk to them on the phone, have their photo in front of you on your screen when you're talking to them. That will actually give you a sense of talking to a human being instead of some disassociated voice that's floating in the clouds, right? You want to have that sense if you're speaking to a human. If you have the video chat, you have video chat. Video chat's a little tricky. One of the things I recommend on video chat is put the camera of the video of them really close to your camera. What that does is it forces your eyes to look like you're looking at the camera. And so it looks like you're looking into each other's eyes. And you're looking slightly down anyways to see their video, but it looks very similar. If you wanted to really give them that feel that they're looking in your eyes, you just look straight at the camera. But that won't allow you to see what they're thinking and how they're responding to what you're saying. So I put the camera really close. And then I also put my laptop. I keep my laptop elevated so that my camera is at my eye length. My laptop right now is about like this far off the ground. So you might use books to do that. I actually have a laptop stand that holds my laptop really nicely. But when you're doing interviews, that's a really important thing, is that you have that sense of eye contact. So you try that. I think a lot of you already have that. For a lot of you, it looks pretty good. Some of you I'll name just a few of you: Gerald, Nahom. If you're able to elevate, David, I think as well, if you're able to elevate your laptop a little bit, it'll help you. David, I'll just notice your shoulders are turned to the camera right now. So it looks like you're not quite talking to us, right? So yeah, exactly. As you rotate your body, if you're head on to the screen, now we're back into a one-on-one conversation. There's a lot of small things that you should try to practice and play with. Try to do that with each other. Make sure you practice checking your sound and your microphone for interviews. God, I can tell you, just like if you walk into an interview and the interviewer cannot hear you clearly because of your sound and there's sound issues, or they're hearing stuff in the background that's distracting to them, I mean, it doesn't matter how wonderful you are, right? They're just going to be frustrated by that experience. So take the time, have Zoom calls with friends and 10 Academy, your cohort here, and just practice these things. Ask them, can you hear anything in the background? Yes? Then go and yell at people in the background, be quiet, and then come back, right? And see, can they still hear them? Or do whatever you need to do. Try stuff out, right? Get practiced at your mute button, by the way. If you're using Zoom, there's a hotkey, shift. For those on Windows, it's Control and then A. For those on Mac, it's the command button. Shift Command A will toggle mute on and off. So you want to be really quick on that, right? The minute they ask you a question, I can switch back and forth, right? So there you go. I see Wamuyu doing it. Everyone should just practice really quick. Just practice doing it. You don't want that lag or that delay in the conversation. Great. I want to welcome Rafaya on the video and John as well. Appreciate you joining us, and Janet as well. It's good that all of you are practicing getting comfortable on the camera. That's going to be very important for you during our pandemic. By the way, again, I got lucky. I got to get good at all this stuff with IBM, because in IBM, there's 400,000 employees. We work across the country and across the world. And so 99% of my teammates, I only met on Zoom or on phone calls. So we all got very good at this stuff. You had to, right? So I got to cheat. So please learn from me. Let me pass on the information and the guidance to you. Okay. Eye contact. Oh, right. Macaulay, another thing to do around feeling comfortable when you're with your interviewers. When you go on LinkedIn, you'll find that people's universities are listed. You'll find that people's majors are listed, the degrees, stuff like that. So there are two things I'll do. If I'm feeling more courageous, I'll actually tell them, oh, I saw that you went to this and this school, or I saw that you studied this and this, right? And I will have thought about what's interesting about that beforehand. So if they studied anthropology, I'll say, you know, I've been really interested in different cultures and societies, and it's really interesting to hear you studied anthropology. Did you have a focus? And you'll ask them something personal, right? And again, asking a personal question builds that social relationship, right? But it also makes it more, when we build that social relationship, you'll feel less threatened by this person. Now it's a human being you're talking to, right? If you can sneak that stuff in right before you ask they ask you technical questions, right? When they say the hi, hello, how are you kind of stuff. If you can start with that social stuff, it makes it much easier. You're not always going to get that choice. Many interviewers will come in and they know they've got 30 minutes to interview you. They've got 50 questions. They're just going to give you a bunch of questions very quickly, right? So some interviewers will not give you that chance, and you'll just have to be ready. They'll go immediately into the questions, right? So in that case, try to prepare yourself for that, right? And just try to answer those questions and start with your reflective listening. One other thing that reflective listening will do is it'll give you time to think, because all you're doing is reflecting what you've heard them say, right? And you're checking if you understood. So when you say, did I hear that correctly? Did I get what you meant? Did I understand the question correctly? When you ask them that question, then they have to think. All of that gives you space to think. You go from having 2 seconds to answer the question to having about 30 seconds to answer the question, right? That's a big difference. So I encourage you, again, practice that reflective listening. Give me a thumbs up if any of this has been helpful so far, and give me a thumbs down or a chat in the message in the chat if you want something else. Okay. Macaulay, do you feel complete? Do you feel like I answered the concerns you were having?
Yes.
All right, great. Let me know if you have other questions that come up. Stephanie, what about you? Anything on your mind? Anyone else, by the way, if you've got questions about interviews, put them in the chat. I'm just asking Macaulay and Stephanie because they voted on interviews. Stephanie, what about you? So Stephanie, this is one of those moments where we're going to practice our mics. This is why we practice with our mics. We cannot hear any sound from you right now.
Hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, so I was saying that.
Ooh, and now I just got a bunch of interference on your mic.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Wow.
All right, so Stephanie, I just want you to take all of this as a +1 that will help you, right? That it will help you to practice with your mic, right? If you can avoid losing 2 minutes in an interview because you're having sound communication problems, goes a long way. By the way, if your interviewer is having those problems and you are patient, they will be very appreciative, right? So it's an inverted thing. If you have those problems, your interviewer will probably be impatient with you and they will judge you for it. If they have those problems and you are patient, they will appreciate you. So just keep that stuff in mind. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Okay. So my question was about building a rapport, of which you've already touched on. Just not making the interview like a question answer kind of session, and just going beyond that and just building a relationship with the interviewer. So that was my question, and you've answered it to the level that I required. So thank you.
Okay, great. Good. And then one thing I'll say now. Oh, yeah, David, you got a question? Go for it.
Yeah, sure. On that part of interviews, I have a question. So sometime back, you taught us about, letting them to know that you understand the organization and the responsibility that they hold. So how will you come in with these facts? Or probably they won't ask you. So how are you going to help them know that you really understand the responsibilities and the organizational structure?
Great question. So first of all, I know that I don't understand them, right? The only thing I'm doing is I am being thoughtful ahead of time, that I'm curious and I might have some understanding, right? So I want to be very clear about that level of humility and openness and curiosity, because really it's about being grounded in the curiosity and that I'm in the process of understanding the organization. When I'm grounded in that as I walk into the interview, then there's a much better chance that in the interview, they will share more information. And as they share information, I can leave the interview with a better understanding, and they will leave the interview thinking he figured it out. During this interview, David understood, right? During this interview, Rahel understood. You want them to leave the interview thinking that, right? So that means two things. That means one, you've done a little bit of thinking ahead of time, which means when you're on LinkedIn, you've looked at their title. Based on their title, you've thought about what kind of job or what kind of position they might have. Based on people you've interviewed as mentors, people that you've talked to as coaches like me, right? You understand how companies are structured, right? So you don't know how their company is structured, but you have some idea of how some companies are structured, right? Based on the classes you've been in. You know that if there's a director of marketing, there's probably a CEO that the director reports to, or maybe a chief marketing officer that the director reports to. You're not sure, but you know that the director of marketing isn't at the top of the company, right? Based on your previous knowledge, right? And if there's a director of marketing, you know that there's a good chance, if it's a big company, that they have a team of marketing people. If it's a very big company, they have a team that has teams underneath it, right? So you know these things based on your understanding, based on talking to other people. So if you didn't know that before, I just said it, now you know it, right? So when you go into that conversation and you know their title is director of marketing, one of your first questions is, or one of the things you're saying is, I understand that you, so to Macaulay's point, right? Or what I was saying about reflective listening, they might say, so tell me, if I was asked for a report, if I was asking your team, the data science team, for a report on, let's say, customer analytics. I want to know how many of our customers are from different age demographics. And what would you give me? Right? This is the kind of question I might ask in an interview. If it's an open-ended question, based on how smart you are, by the way, this is a question that shows whether or not you're humble or arrogant. Because if you're arrogant, you're going to act like you already know the answer. And you're just going to, boom, throw me something. If you're humble, you're going to share something and then ask a lot of questions to get clear on what I really need, right? And based on your questions, I can tell how much you already understand this work, right? So that's a really good test for me when I'm looking for potential, right? When I'm looking for humble and arrogant, at your level, I'm looking for potential. So if you're, 10 years from now, you can be arrogant if you want, because you probably have skills 10 years from now. Right now, arrogance will kill you. So you be really careful with your arrogance. So when I ask you that question as the interviewer, I might say, hey, David, what kind of, customer, so let's practice it real quick, and I'm going to coach you, David. So David, we're in an interview situation. I am the director of marketing. After you interview with me, you're going to interview two other people will interview you. One of them will be your manager, the manager of data science. But right now you're talking to me, the director of marketing, and I would be one of your internal customers. I would be asking you for an analytics if you were to work at my company. My company is called Empower. It's a social change business, okay? I've just asked, we've already done the hi hellos, and I've just asked you this question. I'm asking you this question now, and you're going to answer it. Give me a thumbs up. You're down for this? Yeah. All right, cool. Now let's do it. Everyone else, I want you to turn off your videos for a second, and it's just going to be David and I. So you're going to get a feel for just us, the two of us. All right. Great, David. So, so David, good to have you here. And so my question for you is, I ask a lot of reports. One of the reports I ask for is a breakdown on demographic. So, we want to understand our customers a lot better. So I'm looking for basically an overall view of what is our customer's demographic. How would you present that report? David, let me give you 3 tips. I'm going to step out of the role play. I'm going to give you 3 tips, okay? Yeah. First tip, you've already heard me say, reflective listening. You got to reflect back what the question is, right? Everyone on the call, practice reflective listening at home. If you can do it at home, you can do it in your interviews. Do it at home, all right? So first, practice your reflective listening. Make sure you understood my question. Second, focus on purpose. This was the very first thing we talked about at the very, very beginning when we did these sessions. What is the purpose of the analytics? Every single thing you do should be actionable. Every single piece of analytic you provide should provide the capacity for somebody to take an action, make a decision to take an action, right? So you want to focus on what is that decision, what is the action, what is the purpose of this document I'm creating, right? So that's your number 2, is you want to say, can I just better understand, and take some guesses. Right? You want to give them a guess because you don't want to make it sound like you don't know where to start. So you're going to take a guess on what the purpose is, right? And just check. So first reflect back, and then check after I confirm. Then you just sort of check if you understand the purpose. Okay? Give me a thumbs up, David. Is that working for you? All right. And then the third piece you're going to do is, when you're talking about it, I want you to practice describing the analytic as if you're already working at the company, right? So, so I want you to use words that make me think that you're imagining yourself working at the company, and you're going to help me imagine that you're already working at the company. So those are 3 things I want you to try. Okay?
Yeah. Sure. So now come again. The
great.
Question.
Yep, I'll ask you one more time. So David, I want, as the head of marketing, I want a customer analysis or analytic that describes our customers' demographics. How would you present that to me?
Okay, so we are to, as as a data scientist to do an analysis on the customer data and present a report to the marketing team so that they can make a decision and also help in making the marketing strategy. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. We would be using it to do the marketing strategy. That's right. That's right.
Okay, so first of all, I will get the data and I will do the analysis and I will concentrate on the demographic of the customers so that I may be able to understand the demographic distribution of our customers. And I will also I will present my analysis in a report form and also in a visualized way so that it may be able to be understandable to the marketing team. And I will also approach the marketing team that will be using this report to make decisions and get insights from them if the report or the if the insights from the analytics will help them or I need to dig deeper. So after I get some information from them of what I have done, I will go back and revisit my analysis, and then I will, after the final draft, then I will be able to present to the director of the marketing team. Thank you.
All right. So David, I've got some feedback for you, but I want to, because we're short on time, I'm going to actually focus on giving you all tips. So everyone come back out, come back on video. And I want to give all of you some tips on how to, and David, you stay on video with us, on how to practice for this stuff. So first, what did everyone notice about how David answered that question? Tell me what your notices were. Let's hear from everyone else before I share my thoughts. Yeah, go for it. You can just unmute and talk.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, so I think he was not straight to the point, and there was a lot of, like, he was not specific on how he's going to do it. Like, I was not captivated by what he said. Like, I didn't even get exactly what was going to do it. No hard feelings, David. Like,
yeah, and I appreciate you saying no hard feelings, Stephanie. I just want to remind all of us, right? We're doing this for our learning, right? So if this is uncomfortable, just remind each other and remind yourselves that we're doing this with best intentions to support each other and to do our best as well, right? So keep that in mind. So from a good place, from a kind heart, I want to hear more thoughts, you know, positive or negative. I think it's important that we hear the negative stuff, right? So please, everybody. Ida, can you explain more on repetition of concepts? I'm not understanding.
So what I mean is, when he was trying to explain how he would approach the problem, he was repeating. He said he was
so Ida, your connection just cut out for me. And she's actually probably not even going to be able to hear that. So let me just put that in the chat. I assume everyone else is having the same experience. Yeah, okay. Yeah, if you have a poor internet connection, try to find a place that you can use reliably for your internet, for your interviews. I know that can be tricky, but that's really important to figure out. My parents love to tell me the story when they were growing up that they always went to their uncle's house to study because it was the only place you can get quiet. Find out who you can rely on for that. Ida, do you want to try again?
Okay, sorry, I accidentally turned off my hotspot. So what I meant is he was focusing on only 2 points on the he was going to the graphic data and he was going to present a report to the manager. He was just playing around those 2 points. So yeah, that's what I mean. Okay.
So you had a sense that he was repeating himself, and for you, you only heard 2 key points. I did hear more key points, and that said, it doesn't matter, right? Because David and everybody, unfortunately, your target audience is in when you have the non-technical interviews. For example, the marketing manager, they're expecting you to be so clear because they don't understand data science, right? So David, part of your answer, you started talking about other things as well that I was able to pick up because I'm a data science manager. But your marketing manager would probably have heard just 2 points as Ida had named, right? So things to keep in mind. I want to hear from just one more person. Oh, actually, I see some people in the chat. So Wumuyu said she liked that you echoed back to the question to identify the purpose of what was being done. I think that was great. I agreed that you did that. Ken mentioned that he thinks that you may have spoken for too long. I agree. Ken, everybody here, when you're not confident, you will ramble on. You've seen me ramble on all the time. When I'm less confident with you, I am rambling on. When I'm more confident, my points are going to be pretty clear. And actually, you know, a few of you have commented on some of our sessions are interactive, some of them are less interactive. When I'm more prepared, it's more interactive. When I'm less prepared, when I'm less confident, I just talk for a long time. This is a natural human tendency, right? So now my recommendation and my homework assignment for everybody. When you reach out to somebody for 15 minutes this week, ask them if they will practice interviewing with you. Do a mock interview with somebody else in 10 Academy. How will you do the mock interview? I want you to do 3 things to prepare your mock interview. 1, I want you to find a job description online that you are going to pretend that you have received an interview for. Okay, so find the job description, share it with whoever you're doing the mock interview with. Spend 15 minutes on one person and 15 minutes on the other person. So each person should get a chance to pretend to be interviewed. Decide what your job is, right? Go on LinkedIn and find the profile for the person who you're going to pretend is the interviewer. So David, in this case, I would have actually, if we were going to do this as the mock interview, I would look up the LinkedIn profile and I'll say, David, here's who I am. And I would give you the link for the LinkedIn profile and you would have my name. And I would pretend to be that person during our mock interview, okay?